Good morning students. Today we are starting the fourth unit of our 12th biology syllabus and our fourth unit is biotechnology. This unit is having two chapters. The first chapter of this unit is biotechnology principles and processes, which we are going to start today, and the second chapter is biotechnology and its applications, which we are going to discuss later on. So today we are starting a new chapter and we must be familiar with the words we are going to use in this chapter. So the first word which we are going to use basically is biotechnology. And what we are going to discuss over here is this biotechnology simply means that there is manipulation of genes. The humans are going to manipulate genes or genetic material of an organism as per their own desired requirements. So we are in whole chapter we are going to talk about manipulation of gene and genetic material. Either we are going to use some of the microorganisms for the manipulation purpose or some eukaryotic cells are also going to be used. Genetic material. Some different terms are also used over here, like recombinant DNA technology, genetic engineering. Most of the biotechnology processes, like the earliest one is fermentation, which we have already talked about in last chapter. So these are some of the oldest biotechnological processes, and today which we are going to discuss recombinant DNA technology, genetic engineering, DNA fingerprinting is there, then there is formation of test tube baby, what in vitro fertilization is done. So all these things are new biotechnological processes which we are using nowadays. Now these new biological processes, they are only possible because we have done certain discoveries, and because of these discoveries we are able to do all these things. What these discoveries are? The first one is discovery of plasmid. So these discoveries have contributed a lot in these biotechnological processes. So scientists find out that the bacterial cell is having its genetic material, and along with genetic material a extra chromosomal DNA is also present in the bacterial cell, that is independent from the chromosomal DNA. It is going to replicate independently and it is not important for the survival of the bacteria, but it is going to give that bacteria some more advantages, like nitrogen fixating genes are there, then antibiotic resistant genes are there. So plasmid is playing a very important role in our biotechnological processes. The second was in 1960, scientists observed that when a bacteriophage was entering its DNA into a bacterial cell, we know that bacteriophages are the viruses which are responsible for the infection of bacteria. So when DNA of the bacteriophage was entering in the bacterial cell, then this DNA was broken down into fragments by these bacterial cells. So they find out that there must be a defensive mechanism that is present in the bacterial cell that is responsible for degradation of this viral or bacteriophage DNA. Then in 1970, three scientists, Arbour was there, Hamilton Smith was there, and one more scientist was there, his name was Nathan. They isolated first restriction endonuclease from a bacterium Haemophilus parainfluenzae. We are going to talk about this term restriction endonuclease also. From Haemophilus parainfluenzae, this restriction endonuclease was isolated, and these are also known as molecular seizures because they are responsible for the cutting of molecules. Like DNA is a big molecule that is cut by these restriction endonucleases. So they said that this endorestriction, the bacteria is having that restriction endonuclease that is responsible for the fragmentation of this bacteriophage DNA. So that is acting as a defensive mechanism. It is having the ability to cut the DNA at specific points. The next thing was, there were some more scientists. There were Chang was there, who were responsible for the formation of first recombinant. First, let's talk about Paul Berg. Paul Berg was the individual who first used genetic engineering. And that's why he is also known as father of genetic engineering. What he did, he took a gene from SV40 and he introduced that gene into a bacteria. So this is how he first used genetic engineering. Now some more scientists were there. These were Annie Chang and Stanley Cohen. They also isolated a gene from bacteria. So gene isolated from bacteria and they introduced this bacterial gene into the plasmid of E. coli. So this is how a recombinant was formed. This was a recombinant because that was carrying a foreign gene. So these are some of the discoveries and experimental events which led to the foundation of new biotechnological processes which we are using very commonly. Now this biotechnological processes, they are working on two important technologies. First one is genetic engineering and the second one is biochemical engineering. So these two technologies are very important. Genetic engineering, in which we are talking about manipulation of genes. So in genetic engineering there is manipulation of genes by man. This manipulation of gene is including isolation of a gene, then ligation or addition of a gene, there is any repair, insertion. So all these things are going to come in genetic engineering. The second one is biochemical engineering. Now we know that in this biotechnology we are going to use either microbes or eukaryotic cells. So these microbes or eukaryotic cells are required to culture in a sterilized medium so that we can easily use them for our own purpose. So there is requirement of two technologies, that is genetic engineering and biochemical engineering. Now let's understand how this genetic engineering is functioning. Something conceptual understanding. So simply we know that all the living organisms, they are going to show reproduction. Some of the living organisms are going to show asexual reproduction, the simplest forms, and most of the complex organisms are going to show sexual reproduction. Now sexual reproduction is having an advantage over asexual reproduction, and the advantage is variations are going to come because of the sexual reproduction. Hybridization is there, because these variations are going to form the hybrid varieties, that is the natural phenomena, and that is coming from sexual reproduction. Now when higher qualities are produced because of the different combination of genes, the desired genes are coming, but the thing is, in normal natural conditions there are chances of coming of undesired genes also. And what genetic engineering is providing the advantage, that in genetic engineering we are only going to focus on the desired gene, and we are going to ignore, completely neglect the undesired gene. So only a desired gene will be introduced into an organism. There are no chances of selecting a undesired gene. So this is how from the natural process genetic engineering is more advantageous. Now what we are going to do, we are going to extract out the desired gene from the organism. That desired gene might have some important function, and we require a host cell, a recipient cell, in which that particular desired gene will be introduced. Now where we are going to introduce that particular gene? We are going to introduce that particular gene in the genome of the recipient cell. There is a reason behind this, that why it is required to be inserted in the genome of the recipient cell, because the gene is going to multiply, replicate, and for the replication of gene there is requirement of origin of replication. And the gene which we have inserted in the recipient cell, that is not going to have this origin of replication. This origin of replication is present in the genetic material in the genome of the recipient cell. So when we are going to insert it in the genome of the recipient cell, that is going to have this origin of replication, and its replication will start, and number of copies are going to be increased. So this is how genetic engineering is functioning. Now there were two scientists who made the first recombinant DNA. We are going to talk about the formation of first recombinant DNA, how they started functioning. So we are discussing about the first artificial recombinant DNA molecule that was done by Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer in 1972. Now what they did? Firstly, they isolated a gene from a bacterium, and the gene was a antibiotic resistant gene. So isolated a antibiotic resistant gene from Salmonella typhimurium. So from the plasmid, we know that plasmid are having antibiotic resistant gene. From the plasmid of this bacteria Salmonella typhimurium, they isolated the antibiotic resistant gene, that is providing advantage to this bacteria to become resistant from a specific antibiotic. Now for the isolation of these gene from this bacterium, they were requiring some of the tools, like they used restriction endonuclease. Which is a molecular scissor that is going to cut the DNA at specific parts, and after cutting the DNA from the specific part, this gene has become being isolated. Then another thing, now they are required to ligate this DNA into a vector. Vector is a carrier molecule that is going to carry this gene, and this vector is going to be inserted into a recipient organism, and in that recipient organism it is going to multiply, and the number of copies are going to increase. So these restriction endonucleases were used which were responsible for the cutting of the DNA and isolating this antibiotic resistant gene. Now this gene was inserted into a plasmid that is going to act as a vector. So inside this vector, this isolated gene will be ligated, will be inserted with the help of certain enzymes like DNA ligases, which are responsible for joining of these two DNA fragments. So inside a plasmid, inside a vector, this gene was ligated. And now this plasmid, this DNA is known as a recombinant DNA. Why recombinant? Because this is carrying a extra gene, that is a antibiotic resistant gene. And now this plasmid will be inserted into the recipient cell. Here it is E. coli. So this recombinant DNA will be inserted into E. coli, or you can say a E. coli cell will be transformed. It is going to incorporated into this E. coli cell. There it is going to replicate, and because of replication of plasmid, multiple copies of antibiotic resistant genes will be formed, and formation of this multiple copies is known as cloning. So this is how this process is done. Now let's see it in help of with a simple diagram. So if we understand this thing, then this is our foreign DNA that is having the antibiotic resistant gene. Now here this foreign DNA, it is treated with restriction endonuclease, and because of the treatment with restriction endonucleases, fragments are there. Now from here we are going to isolate our desired fragment that is carrying the antibiotic resistant gene. After isolating this antibiotic resistant gene, we are going to require a vector. Here is a plasmid DNA, and this is going to act as a vector. So again it will be getting treated with restriction endonuclease so that it can be cut. The structure will be open from one point, and then DNA ligases are used to insert, to attach this DNA, this gene with this plasmid. And after attachment, DNA ligase is going to seal both the ends, and now it is a recombinant DNA that is formed. And this recombinant DNA will be inserted into the E. coli, and inside the E. coli it is going to replicate, it is going to multiply in number, and that is known as cloning. So this is how this recombinant DNA molecule was made by two scientists, and they performed this experiment. Now if we talk about this recombinant DNA technology, so in recombinant DNA technology what we are doing, we are taking a desired gene and we are inserting this desired gene in a vector. A recombinant molecule is formed in this way, and then this recombinant molecule is inserted or is transformed into a new organism. It can be a simple bacteria, that is E. coli. This is the one way how recombinant DNA technology is done. There are some other ways also through which this DNA is inserted into the recipient cell, like co-cultivation is there. Co-cultivation means the recipient organism and the purified DNA, they are present in the same nutrient medium. So recipient organism and purified DNA in same nutrient medium. If they are present in same nutrient medium, then there are chances that this recipient cell is going to intake this purified DNA, and it is going to enter inside the recipient cell. Now another method can be, there is the treatment with the electrical impulses are provided, that is electroporation. And in this method of electroporation, electric impulses are provided, and these electrical impulses, they are responsible for changing the porosity of the protoplasm. So they are going to change the porosity of protoplasm. Protoplasm is going to be more porous, and it is going to intake the foreign, or you can say intake purified DNA. So this is the another method through which DNA, recombinant DNA can be incorporated into the host, or you can say recipient cell. The another one is, there is a shotgun method, and in this shotgun method, or you can say there is another, shotgun is one method, micro injection, with the help of a needle, or you can say simply with the help of a pipette, the DNA is incorporated inside the cell or recipient cell. There are some other methods also. So we are going to discuss these methods in detail later on also. So these are some of the methods through which recombinant DNA is inserted inside the recipient organism. So now let's talk about the tools of recombinant DNA technology which are used. Technology. There are three tools. We are going to use enzymes, different type of enzymes are used. Then vector DNA is used in recombinant DNA technology, and passenger DNA is used. So we are going to discuss something about enzymes only for today. So there are lots of enzymes that are used over here. The first enzymes are lysing enzymes. A simple example of lysing enzyme is lysozyme. These lysing enzymes are responsible for breakdown of the cell, because we are required to reach the DNA, because we are required to extract out the gene from the DNA. So we need to break down the cell, whether it is a bacterial cell or another organism. So the cells will be broken down by these lysing enzymes, and after breaking down the cell, we can easily reach to the DNA, and we can easily extract out or isolate a specific desired gene. Then there are cleaving enzymes. These cleaving enzymes are going to act on DNA. They are responsible for cutting off DNA. Now we are having different type of cleaving enzymes. जो DNA, those who are responsible for breaking down or cutting off the DNA, they are known as nucleases. And we are having exonucleases. Exonucleases are those nucleases which are responsible for cutting the DNA at the terminal ends. So they are going to cut the DNA at terminal ends only. The second are endonucleases. Means they are also responsible for cutting off the DNA, but they are going to cut the DNA in between the DNA strands. So cutting in between DNA strands. Now these endonucleases, they can be non-specific, which can cut the DNA at any of the site. Well, some of the endonucleases are very specific in their function. We are talking about them from long time. These are restriction endonucleases. These restriction endonucleases, they are not going to cut DNA from anywhere, while they are going to read a specific site and from this specific site only they are going to cut that particular DNA, and after cutting off the DNA they are responsible for the movement of liberation of single stranded DNA which having sticky ends, and these sticky ends they can pair up with the strands that are having complementary sequences with them. So we are going to, after cutting, single stranded ends are going to form. These single stranded ends are having some nitrogenous bases and they are sticky in nature, so they can bind with the complementary sequence if they are getting some of the complementary sequences. So this is how restriction endonucleases are going to function. Then we are having some synthesizing enzymes. For example, reverse transcriptase is there. What this reverse transcriptase is going to do? This is responsible for the formation of complementary DNA from a RNA template, and this is present in retroviruses. So in retroviruses, from RNA template a complementary DNA is formed by the help of reverse transcriptase, and second one is DNA polymerase, that is also a synthesizing enzyme that is going to form a DNA strand on a DNA template. So these are some of the synthesizing enzyme. Now there are some enzymes which are responsible for joining also, like DNA ligases are there. Joining enzymes, for example DNA ligases. So from where the DNA is being cut, these DNA ligases are responsible for the formation of phosphodiester bond, and again the DNA strands will be joined. And alkaline phosphatases are there. They are simply going to remove the phosphate group that is present at 5' end. So we cut a DNA, we linearized that DNA, linear form was there, and after removal of this phosphate from the 5' end, after that again the DNA becomes recircularized. So that is done with the help of these alkaline phosphatases. So these were some of the enzymes, these are some of the enzymes that are used in recombinant DNA technology. We have to discuss about restriction endonucleases in detail, the type of restriction endonucleases we are having and how they are functioning. So next class we are going to discuss about restriction endonucleases.